When people think of Wildcat cartridges, they think of expensive dies and crazy setups. But I'm going to show you how you can load some Wildcat cartridges using nothing but a rock chucker and some off-the-shelf dies with a couple simple tips. Let's go have some fun. I'm F-Class John for Ultimate Reloader, and we are talking about Wildcats on the cheap. Now, Wildcats are going to be any cartridge that do not fit into a SAMI spec. So 308 is a great example where there are published dimensions that every manufacturer is going to follow, whether for the chambering, the ammo, or the dies that would be used to reload it. Wildcats are outside of that, so it's going to be any SAMI spec cartridge or case that is then modified in some way to achieve a specific purpose. We're going to be talking about the 7PRCW that I use today, and that is, in essence, a Wildcat cartridge. It is a 6.5 PRC cartridge, and that is going to be a 264 dimension bullet, and we are going to open that neck up and use a 284 bullet in it without really changing anything else. And because of that, we don't really need to buy custom dies if we don't want to. And we're gonna walk through kind of that process of what I do on the simplest terms here. So we've got a Rock Chucker Supreme, we've got some off-the-shelf dies, we're gonna be using a readily available powder, and then of course dropping it with an electronic powder system. So let's get started and have some fun here. We're gonna start with how we kind of change the sizing die, and that's gonna go in two parts. The first is, how do we take an off-the-shelf sizing die to help us turn virgin brass into a Wildcat cartridge? In this case, we're going to take 6.5 PRC and we're going to neck it up. Now, admittedly, this is not a crazy Wildcat. This is, a pretty simple one. And again, it's what lets us use off-the-shelf dies. But we want to show how we take virgin brass, open it up, and make it ready to fit in our chamber and shoot the 7mm bullet. Then we are going to go ahead and take fired brass and take the off-the-shelf dies and show you how to size and decap and all of that fun stuff with already fired brass. So let's start with the virgin brass. Now, we're gonna have our virgin brass here. This is Lapua 6.5 PRC, and we want to neck that up, meaning we want to take the 6.5 neck and we're going to expand it out. Now, the sizing die off the shelf here is going to come with a 6.5 expander ball. So what we want to do is we want to order or buy wherever you can get one. We want to change this out right here. And so this is going to be the expander ball. And this one here has been changed out to a 7mm. Now that's going to allow me to push the necks out. And what I want to do is make sure when we do that also, we want to take the bushing that's in there out, because at this point, I just want to expand the necks at this point. So I want to open them up. I don't want any other interference. Obviously, there's going to be some body sizing that may occur, although it's not likely since this is virgin brass. But we're going to put this back in. And all we're looking for in this particular step is opening up the neck on the brass. So we're going to screw this in. And we obviously want to make sure that we are putting some lube inside of the necks that we have here. And so what I like using are these foam applicator tips, if you look here, and these are really nice. They are way better than any cotton applicator that you have. The cotton applicators, if you've ever used them for lube, you know that when you're doing inside of the necks, about 4, maybe 5 at the most, is all you can do before they start like turning into this giant fluff cotton ball. Well, these foam tips will actually allow you to do, I've done anywhere between 50 and 100 pieces of brass at a time. I just take my lube here and I'm just gonna tap it, and then I'm going to go ahead and run it inside of the necks here. I don't like putting too much lube in there. I just get enough that it's not going to crack the neck or push the neck down into the shoulder, because that's really your two big things that could happen. When you're trying to expand a neck, if you don't have lube in there, then potentially the ball is going to basically work too hard and it's going to crack open the neck, or if it can't get through the neck by cracking it, it's going to shove the neck down into the shoulder, and you don't want that either, because either way you ruined a piece of brass. So just a little bit of lube in there is all you need, and then we just want to run this over, and I can feel it going over the ball, and then we're good here. So that's all it takes. It just opens it up. Nope, I did this one here, so we'll do that one. We just open those up, and they are easy peasy. And we can go ahead, I don't think I put any lube in this one, but we'll go ahead and get that one going too. So we've got that one, and we've got it right there. And you can see, if you look here, the difference between the 6.5 and the 7mm necks. It's pretty apparent even just on visual observation. And that really makes it a simple job. So you can look, make sure that you've expanded everything. You can always take, if you have a 6.5 bullet, maybe you don't know if you expanded all the necks or it's hard for you to tell, you can always take a mandrel or a bullet, something that's smaller than your 7mm in this case, and just see if it goes through the neck in your brass. If it does, then you know that you've expanded it. If it doesn't, then it needs to be expanded. It's just a simple test. Now that I've shown you how to open up the virgin brass, because at this point you would simply load that brass, shoot it, you'd fire form it, and you'd be good to go. But now we've fired that brass, we need to resize it, decap it, you know, bring the neck back in, all that kind of fun stuff. So let me show you how that's going to be done. I showed you how to expand the necks on virgin brass. That's a pretty simple process in itself. But now let's talk about the off-the-shelf dies and how we're going to just tweak them a little bit so that we can now resize our fired brass. So what I have here is just a little bit of my fired brass. It's been fired a couple times. It's ready to go back through the process. So what do we need to do? Well, obviously we full length size. That means we're gonna have a bushing up there. It means we're gonna be sizing the body. Now, because I am using a chamber that is very, very close to a standard 6.5 PRC chamber, I don't have to worry about these 6.5 PRC dies being off the shelf, because the body taper and everything is gonna be pretty darn close, enough so that it's not gonna make a difference when I resize. And the bushing, we're simply going to substitute, in this case, a 6.5 PRC. Normally you would be using a 6.5 appropriate bushing, whatever it is that you do, whether you turn or don't turn the necks. But now we're going to simply put in a 284 appropriate bushing. In this case, I tend to neck size with a 305 bushing. So there's gonna be a 305 neck bushing and then the full length body die. So the whole thing's gonna get sized just to a 7mm spec. So I'm gonna open this up, and this is pretty standard stuff. I'm not teaching you anything you probably don't know already with putting these in, but one little thing in case you don't do it is when I screw in a bushing, and I do use a bushing die on a regular basis, so there is absolutely nothing wrong with them. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna screw this down all the way till it hits, and I'm gonna back it off just a hair, and I'm gonna kind of finger this nut here, and then I wanna shake it. And you can hear that rattle. And I just want that to rattle a little bit because I don't want that bushing just shoved down all the way. I want it to have just a little bit of float. So now that I've got that, I'm gonna stick this in. And I've already done a little bit of adjustment on this die because, well, you don't wanna watch that. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna get it in here, and I'm gonna be close because what I've done is I've screwed the die down, I've brought the ram up, I backed it off about a quarter turn, and I tightened down the ring. That's all I've done so far. So now we are going to go back to our lube here, and we're just gonna put a little bit of finger on here and rub it around. I'm gonna get that one lubed up. We're gonna make sure that it's also zeroed. Sometimes they get, you know, like just half a thousandths off or something. You can see there I'm zeroed off. And there we go, we're right at 3. So I'm gonna split the difference on what I turned because I'd like to be right around 2.5 thousandths. Okay, so we're gonna back it off ever so slightly. There we go. And that should get us right where we wanna be. All right. We'll do one more zero job here. Okay. So we're back at 0. You can see there. We're going to get just a tiny bit of lube. We're going to go ahead and measure. There we go. So 2. So that's where I want to be. And now it's just that easy. So again, this isn't rocket surgery. You know, what we're looking for is we're just looking to find ways that we can utilize dies that we may have or dies that we can easily access and make some minor tweaks on them for cartridges that allow it. And I think this is just a really great example of a way that if you want to get into a Magnum that is incredibly competitive in F-class and other long-range shooting disciplines, that you can get off-the-shelf brass, off-the-shelf dies, and make it work. And so, oops, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just continue to do this. I'm obviously decapping at the same time, so I have the decapper set up in here, and that's going to be decapping. And once we are done sizing everything, I'm going to go ahead and bring them back through, and we're going to show you how we prime on it. Now that we have everything sized and we just have it all in here, we're going to go ahead and start priming. I'm going to be using the Rock Chucker to prime. So we're going to put a primer in there, and this is just going to be a simple, quick process to get all of these done. And we're just going to roll through all 50 of these and get them done, and then we'll take it to the next step. Now that I've got it primed, before we get loading, I should just show you what we were getting for run out. So let's see here. I mean, that one's like 1,000ths or something. Thousands plus or minus there. I'll grab one out of the middle here. I mean, it's moving back and forth 1,000ths from where it was zeroed. So, you know, pretty good for what I'm looking for. So now I'm going to take them over. We're going to trim, chamfer, and deburr them, and then I'll be bringing them back to the process here. We are on the final stages here. We have the brass ready to go. We've got the powder in our dispenser. I just dummied up a round real quick, threw some powder in it, put a bullet in it, and just gave it a quick turn here. And we're going to just see how this looks. We want a finished dimension here of 2.314. And it looks like I'm a little bit short on this one. So we're sitting at right about 2.27. So I'm going to need to come out about 44 thousandths or so. And in this case, even though I have the micrometer up here, it's just easier since I'm getting things set up. I'd rather just bring this out and see what we can do. I'm just going to leave this one. I don't mind having a couple that are a little bit shorter, and those are just going to be for fouling out or whatever it is. So let's get another one going. Now with the Matchmaster, it actually has this nice little setup where you put the bullet into the port as you're loading. It gets it nice and centered up. And we are at 3, you can see here, 3.24, 324. So there we go. So we need to come in 10 thousandths. Now for that, I'm going to go ahead and use the micrometer top here. And we just need to give this a turn and get that down right there. That should get us pretty close. We're going to go ahead and put this one back in and just see if we get that movement. Now, anytime, I've said this before, but anytime I am moving, let's see here, 2.314, right on the dot. Now, I'm always going to do another round that hasn't been pushed yet. So I want to go ahead and get some powder dropped. That's going to take just a second. And the reason I do that is because if we have a round that's been pushed and then pushed again, there's going to be different properties for that seating pressure. So I always want to verify with one continuous seating force. And that usually gets us right where we want to be. So there's that. Let's get this powder in here. And we're going to get it loaded up. We're going to get our bullet in. And let's see. Now with any luck, this will be right on the dot still. And see, this is why we do this. So I'm 1,000 short. I'm at 313. I want to be at 314, and I want to be as close as I can, right? I mean, if I have the ability to make a little bit of an adjustment, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we're just going to come out just under a thousandths actually, and see what that does. But this round's close enough where I'm going to go ahead and shoot it. I'm not really worried about that extra thousandths, but it'll be nice to know that we took it out. So we're going to go ahead and drop some more powder here. And this Ramshot Hunter, it is a ball powder, so it's really fine. The nice thing is I can put this thing on match mode. It gets really accurate because it's almost impossible to overthrow or underthrow a ball powder. So when it says it's at 54, it is going to be as accurate as the system you're throwing it. It is one of the advantages of a ball powder. And while I don't really use them on a regular basis, they are pretty fun to play with, and I've had some really good results with them. There we go. We are at, there we go, 2.314. I'm on the ball. So now all I have to do is go ahead and finish dropping all the powder on these. And just like that, we've got our powder thrown. We've got our 50 rounds ready to go. And we are going to be heading out to 600 yards and see what they do. Pretty painless process using the off-the-shelf items. So I think it gives a good example of what you can do with some of the simpler Wildcat cartridges. But I know everybody wants to see what they can do at the range, so let's head on out there. Whew, we are back from the range, and it was not the best conditions for testing, to be honest. Sometimes we just don't have control of that. The wind has been pretty bad this week. We've had a lot of rain, and you know, you do the best you can to test when you can. We had winds from about 12 to 28 miles an hour. If you look at this, this was my wind app off my phone, and you can see it was 42 degrees out, but with wind chill felt like 32. So it was just a brutal day. Even with that, I think we did a good job of kind of tuning in this load. I just guess, you know, this Ramshot Hunter, I have maybe shot 20 or 30 rounds with it and just done some very basic ladder testing so far. So I took what I thought would be the best powder charge when I went and did this test at 600. To be honest, it wasn't as tight as I wanted. It still needs a little bit of work. But even with that, you can see that as I move the tuner in, my group started tightening up a little bit in terms of vertical. The wind, I mean, these are all single point of aim tests. So the wind is going to show more horizontal on these. I'm not holding and adjusting based on the wind. But the vertical started tightening up when I got in pretty far, turning the tuner. And then I went ahead and shot whatever it was, 13 or 14 shots. And it still wasn't a bad group. There was obviously a couple of outside shots that the wind hit, and the vertical was just over half a minute, but it gave me a lot of hope that with a little bit more development and probably some better testing days, I think we can get this thing dialed in pretty good. But more importantly, it shows how we took an off-the-shelf sizing die, changed out the bushing, changed out the expander ball in here, made it appropriate for a 7mm cartridge that we were using that was based off of the base cartridge that the die was designed for. Then we took a 7mm seating die that was a Magnum very similar, but just a longer cartridge than what I'm shooting, and used it to seat the bullets incredibly consistently. And then we went ahead and loaded them up, and we were good to go. So if you have, the idea you want to kind of go down this Wildcat path, and you are using a Wildcat that is based on a cartridge that you can get off the shelf dies for, and you don't have a lot of body or shoulder or other major changes going on, then this might be a way for you to kind of figure it out a little bit cheaper, a little bit faster, and a little bit more efficiently than if you have to go order custom dies. With that, let me know below, have you tried some Wildcats, and have you had to order custom dies and wish that you could have just gotten off the shelf, or have you gone with off-the-shelf dies to work with a Wildcat? I am curious to hear about it because I know that it is sort of a touchy subject for people. So tell us about your Wildcats and what you've done. And then next time we will see you out at the range. Have a good one. We will talk later.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're watching Ultimate Reloader on TV and want to take advantage of free resources, exclusives, and hot deals, just hold your camera phone up to the QR code, tap on the link, fill out the information, boom, you're getting Ultimate Reloader emails. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. Thanks again for watching.